Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com.
And I'm Pete Wright, also from The Next Reel.
We are, of course, looking at Jon Favreau's 2008 film Iron Man. And joining us today, we have Nick Exposito from the Fantasy Flix League. Hey, Nick.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Nick!
Welcome. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
It's about time.
It's going to be a fun week. We get to talk about the end of the movie and I guess some credits.
Lots of credits.
Yes, indeed. But on today's show, we're looking at minute 116. The minute starts with Tony buying into Agent Coulson's cover story, and it ends with the end of an awkward moment between Tony and Pepper. Awkward moments.
Oh,
They do them well.
I really like this scene for the fact that it shows Tony Stark being excited about being a superhero, which you don't really see a lot in a lot of superhero films, especially, well, if you want to compare, the DC universe, which I guess is the only other major comparison. Everyone seems so dour, like they're burdened by these powers, but he seems like, I'm Iron Man, and I can't believe it.
It's fun the way that he plays that in this scene. The way he's just like, I kind of like it. I kind of like this. Well, I mean, he starts off talking about this cover story, this whole bodyguard cover story that Agent Coulson gave him. And he seems to kind of like buy into it. And the way that he and Pepper play it, where she's just like, you're not Iron Man. He's like, whatever you want, it's great. And then that whole thing, I not only do they play with that notion of him being kind of excited about it, but this whole kind of conversation about, the relationship with the girlfriend that the typical superhero story gives us, right? Where, which they kind of, he has that great conversation about it. It's kind of, again, this scene does a great job of kind of subverting those expectations. It's really fun.
They're both chewing their lips in this scene, and I love it so much. Like the way she smiles when she says, you're not Iron Man, right? The nod and a wink between the two of them, I think sets us up for such a fun relationship between the two of them over the subsequent films that is just, it's kind of heartwarming. And I love that it starts here and it really plays out, to something that I think is really meaningful in the very recent movies. There's a great sorrow in where they are right now. And as we're recording this, we're still waiting for Endgame. But, what's going to happen?
Yeah, how is the relationship going to evolve or end, perhaps?
Yeah.
Oh, don't say that. That makes me sad.
And it starts right here. There's like that glowing kind of warmth that starts right here as she pulls his jacket up over his shoulders. And I really love that. I
also like her delivery at the end. She's giving this sort of sweet speech about how they had this tender moment. And then the way her mood instantly changes as she says, when you left me, or...
Yeah.
And that, I think, works really nicely with the way that Jon Favreau has shown time and time again throughout this film how he handles these switches. He plays with these moments where you have everything leaning toward like a great hero moment, or in this case, a really cute romantic moment, and then he twists it and uses it for comedy. And he does that so well throughout the film consistently. It's a nice Favreau touch that he's always doing, and it works so perfectly with these two characters, the way that it has this romantic feel, and you left me, just the way that she turns it.
Is that the one you're talking about? Is that the night? Oh God. It is just, it's just crushing because how many times have you been in Tony's shoes right here with the big foot in your mouth because you forgot something important, and that she remembers it so clearly. Like you can tell it's always been right on the tip of her tongue, right? Just ready to call that up when she needs it. And it's perfect.
The way that it was scripted, as I mentioned last time, there was no Agent Coulson in the scene when it was originally scripted. So that didn't happen. It was just Tony and Pepper, and she was the one who came up with this alibi and everything with him on the yacht, all that. And so it's interesting how that portion is completely left out. But by the time we get to this moment, the way that it's scripted it's almost like they wanted it to play like there's a moment here, but it's like the dialogue is not there. It's written, for a moment, there's nothing else in the world but the two of them. Then with a tinge of, or actually it starts with him saying, that night at the concert hall, do you ever think about it? And then it has that moment, nothing in the world but the two of them. Then with a tinge of sadness, Pepper says, I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Stark. She brings her hands up and fixes his unruly tie knot. All business. And then it goes back to the callback to the line earlier. Will that be all, Mr. Stark? That will be all, Miss Potts, which we had back when she, after she replaces the RT device in his chest, and he tells her to throw it away. So it's weird how kind of badly written it is. And I think it speaks to the improv that they did on set to kind of really find the way that they wanted this scene to play. Favreau said that he probably had about 3 versions of this scene that it was just completely improvised, 3 versions that he loved. And this is the one that he thought was the best.
Yeah, you can tell they're really, sort of having that improv moment and just kind of reacting off what each other's saying and their emotions. I think it's great. And kind of going back to what you said, Andy, about the theme of, or how, Jon Favreau interjects all of these like little moments of comedy into serious moments. It really shows how much this film set the tone for the rest of the Marvel universe and their films to come. Now, I guess you could argue they're getting a little darker as we're coming around here towards the end, but this movie really is the template for everything else that's going to follow.
Yeah, the way that kind of that relationship is, and I saw somebody had written something. I think one of our listeners posted it over in our Facebook group, the TNR MMM Executive Lounge, for those of you who wanted to look for it.
Nice.
Horribly named. We'll have to come up with a new name for that one of these days.
The Green Room, maybe.
Yes, something better than that. And actually, maybe it's not there. I don't know where it was, but it was a post about, somebody had tweeted about Iron Man and just kind of the way that the character really was kind of the first time that they injected kind of that hint of irony and kind of an ironic tone to the character, and they allowed Tony Stark to really have that, which was so different than what we had normally seen in superheroes. It was always just kind of that overly heroic sense, or kind of that eager, ready to help everybody sort of thing. And there was a little twist to Iron Man, and that really did also help kind of set an overall arcing tone for the way that the Marvel Cinematic Universe would end up feeling. A very different vibe than what we had in the DC heroes and things like that.
Do you think that's because of them casting Robert Downey Jr. to play this role?
I think that there's definitely a part of that. I mean, the amount of kind of that improv and kind of the way that they allowed him to kind of find the character and everything. I think there's a lot of what we got from him that led to that. I don't know. It's hard to say if it's strictly because of that, but I certainly think that was a big part of it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Andy. I think, his casting really kind of led a lot of credence to the character, or not credence, but a lot of him to inject his own personality into the character. And and even if you read past Iron Man comics, Tony Stark was definitely more of the businessman, the serious guy, the smart guy in the room, and not so much this kind of playboy, sort of up to his antics sort of person that they definitely tease and they hint at as, he tries to find himself as who he wants to be as Iron Man throughout this movie. And that's one thing that's, I guess, I would like to have seen more in subsequent movies, 2, 3, whatever, is that I think I like that they established the Pepper-Tony relationship, but I think they established it a little too early. I would have liked to have seen it maybe develop a little more and have Tony be more of that playboy, billionaire, philanthropist, kind of cocky self, play a superhero as that kind of character for like maybe 1.5 more movies. Because I think that fits who Robert Downey Jr. is. I think he could have really taken that some cool places.
That's such an interesting bit of commentary, Nick, because I was watching, I'm super amped for Endgame. And so I've been watching a lot of the cast, like press tour right now. And one of the most interesting comments, I think, came from it was either Scarlett Johansson or Karen Gillan, who said, they were asked, what are you going to miss most about, the production of these films? And they're all very cagey about, well, we don't know what's going to happen next, yada, yada, yada. But the answer ultimately came down to, Robert is Like he has this like chef and brings them to the set and feeds people. Like he just occasionally will show up and throw a food party. And the interviewer said, he's like Tony Stark. And she said, oh, he is Tony Stark. Of all the fantastic roles that Robert Downey Jr. has played, this one is the one that is the easiest for him to navigate because it's his identity. This is who he is. He's crazy and incredibly innovative and generous with his resources and kind to his friends and loyal, but he's also this kind of kooky, rich industrialist guy that is just really easy to put those shoes on. So I think that's I think that's one of the most interesting bits of casting, again, as you said, to define what these movies end up being around him. And I don't know that they gave him enough of, to your point, enough of an opportunity to stretch those particular wings in Iron Man 2. Like we get some of it, and sure. I'm really excited to see it again. It's been a long time because I think there are some things that they do in Iron Man 2. Maybe Iron Man, I can't even remember, where we get to see a little bit more raw Tony Stark stuff. But this particular guy is he's a different breed, and he sets a stage.
The only thing that I would I would question in going that route, because I think you're right. I think it would be interesting to kind of have had more of that before the Tony Pepper relationship really kicked in, but I feel like there would have been a potential for it to kind of turn into a James Bondy sort of character where, he's betting a different women or several different women in every movie before finally settling down with Pepper, down the road. And then all of a sudden I feel like I would feel a little grosser about all of that. It's there, but still.
Yeah. Well, and that's funny because that does get us to the DC comparison so handily. Like when you look at Batman and, the women that come in and out of Wayne Manor as a result of him playing a role, right? I mean, he has like his role is when he takes the mask off, like he's playing a character. It's such an interesting dichotomy where here, I mean, they anchor this monogamous relationship so early in this series of 22 movies that becomes something that we can rely on as the audience. And I think that's really nice.
Batman's an interesting point. Do you think that was part of the reason that they made this shift, so it didn't feel like that?
Yeah, because, Tony Stark is, the character himself is the reverse Batman in a way, Mm-hmm. And yeah, this makes them stand out because, you look at aside from maybe the Nolan films, but you look at past Batman films, there's always been that new girl coming in, almost like a Bond girl. And this really sets it apart by, having that committed relationship at the beginning. So he doesn't have to have that direct Bruce Wayne comparison. It definitely separates him from that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a really interesting comparison, and I feel like I like what they did with Tony and Pepper, and actually I think the reason I end up liking it, maybe even if they didn't go that route where it waited a couple films to really do anything, is the fact that they don't wrap it up with a romance, right? You have this great moment in this scene that we're looking at where she kind of reminds him at how bad he is at romance and kind of says, you left me there, and that's it. And she just kind of sends him on his way, and he's just like, he gives that great look after she calls him out, and he just kind of rolls his eyes like, oh yep, I screwed that one up, and it's a nice little moment, and it doesn't end with the hero and the girl kissing at the end of the movie.
Right.
This is kind of the final moment that we have between these two, other than a brief moment later of her kind of watching the press conference. That's it, and it doesn't kind of continue the romance until later films. So to that end, I really like that we don't necessarily have that closure of the relationship yet.
It definitely sets up the subsequent third film where, Tony has to separate, is the suit more important, or is him being Iron Man himself more important? And it, so like committing to this relationship and, the people he loves and his family, or, et cetera, et cetera. It kind of sets up that, Tony kind of playing with him being Iron Man and how much he loves it and how much he's just kind of obsessed with it. And then the payoff kind of comes later, I guess, when they solidify the relationship.
Yeah, I think it's I love the relationship, and I'm glad that it went this way. I'm glad that they made this shift in their relationship and gave him the Pepper to kind of connect with, as opposed to like Pepper ending up with Happy, which I think, I mean, I know it happened in the comics. I feel like it wouldn't have ended up working as well here. And, I haven't read all of the Iron Man comics. Does he ever end up kind of in a real serious relationship at any point in his run in all the comics that he's in? Do you know, Nick?
There is relationship history between him and Pepper, and then it ends up going, with Happy because, Tony makes his own decisions and decides to go his own way. And currently, in the current run or anything after that, no. He's just sort of been... He's been Iron Man, and that's been his thing. That's his relationship. He's married to the suit. Yeah.
Interesting. It's interesting that they've kept it that way and that they haven't ever really kind of grown it into anything. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's not a lot of superheroes in comics. There's probably more that I'm thinking of that end up having like serious relationships, like marriage relationships that they deal with. But maybe I'm misremembering that. Can you think of
no, there really aren't off the top of my head. Like it seems DC kind of goes that route more than Marvel, because really the biggest relationship in all of Marvel comics is the one between Peter Parker and Mary Jane, like Spider-Man and his wife, girlfriend, or depending on what era you're in. And other than that, there's notable love interests like with Captain America and Peggy Carter or her niece, as it later on down the road. Maybe Bruce Banner and
Bruce and Betty seem like they're one that you think of.
But what about the Fantastic Four?
Fantastic Four, that's another good example. But you go back to DC,
but they're both supers.
Yes, I guess with normal people that aren't.
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to look at it that way. Which I know this isn't the same movie, but it's weird that Marvel didn't, or at least the Marvel Universe, kind of ignored that whole Betty Banner relationship.
That is interesting. I wonder if that's something that they're pocketing for whatever is post Endgame.
That's good.
For Hulk.
Point.
They'll have to work that out with Universal to get any more of that.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Ugh, what a mess. They'll just buy them. Don't worry. They'll take care of it.
It'll be the Disney / Universal / 20th Century Fox / Marvel / Muppets / Star Wars
films.
I can't wait for all the crossovers.
Everything else. Cinematic universe.
Yeah. Fozzie Bear's going to suit up with a lightsaber. Don't worry. We got it all worked out.
Yeah. Iron Man, Tony Stark builds Darth Vader a new suit.
No, there's an interesting universe crossover,
and it's all nanobots.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't at least done that in the comics, because they own all these comic book companies too. Yeah. That'd be a fun what if.
That would be like the next level of what if, like starting to cross universes.
Yeah,
they own so many of them now. That would be really kind of fun to see what they could do there.
Oh, especially if they buy Universal. Oh, this is it. That's the next ultimate what if. What if Disney, Marvel, 20th Century Fox buys Universal? And I just want to see, like, it's just a half hour of boardroom negotiation. I can't wait.
Talking about what properties they get. And oh my God.
The Fast and the Furious tied into the Star Wars Muppet universe.
Right. Star Wars Muppet Cinematic Universe.
Hey, they got to bring back, Disney's dying to bring back the Muppets in a big way. So there you go.
They're all CG though.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I don't want to see a CG Muppet. The idea of that you broke my brain just now. That's something you should say.
Andy, they did so well with Yoda. Come on, I know you love that so much.
Yeah, they'll do the Yoda treatment on all the Muppets.
Yeah. But then they did so good with Yoda in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, they brought the Muppet back and it looked amazing.
They only went CG Yoda, I think, because they screwed it up so bad in the original release of Phantom Menace. I don't know what that thing was on screen, but I'm really glad that they replaced it with the CG Yoda, because that looks so much better. That was an abomination.
I don't know what they were thinking or why they designed it that way. Like, it's like, don't you guys have the original model anywhere handy?
Yeah, right.
Maybe that was, and it just like deteriorated with age.
It could be.
It's in the back of some like effects artist, like El Camino, parked in the junkyard somewhere. They lost it. I guess we'll have to do this one from memory, guys.
Yeah. It's like they got a sketch artist who was drunk or something.
It's based on a police sketch.
Spitting image.
His forehead looked like Peyton Manning's. It was...
Oh, man. Well, I think we're derailing on our Iron Man conversation, which might speak to the fact that, I don't know, do we have much else to say about this one, or should we close this one up and get ready for the next one?
I'm ready for the next one.
I'm so ready for the next one.
All right. Well, Nick, would you like to tell everybody where they can find you out there on the internet?
Oh, yeah. So go to www.fantasyflixleague.com. That's FLIX. So what it is, it's been described to me, I love this description, as indoor, or it's fantasy football for indoor kids. So it allows you to, you can create a movie, you create a league like you would with fantasy football. You can invite friends and you draft movies, and you get points based on box office score, Metacritic rating, and you can trade your movies, you draft them. It's completely free, so you can sign up at any time. And the way it works is whenever you start your league, whatever movies haven't been released yet up to that point are available for draft. You guys can have a grand old time. It's definitely fun to get friends together like we are now, and rib each other as you draft. Someone picks the Lego Movie 2 for a first round pick or something like that. So and it's again completely free, so sign up.
Awesome. Well, everybody check that out. In the meantime, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at marvelmovieminute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at thenextreel.com/Patreon. Until next time, true believers,